Okay, good morning everybody. Last night I was thinking, I wasn't quite sure what to do. what, what shall I do this morning? And On Buddhist metaphysics, and I've forgotten about the fact that it's the anniversary. It's Buddha Day. It's the anniversary of the Buddha's Enlightenment. So completely obvious what to do. So we'll go into the Buddha's Enlightenment and some verses from the Mahavastu. Yeah. So yesterday I went into the middle way, and it's really interesting that it can sort of spark kind of people responding. Oh, it's not this, it's not that, whatever. And I think what I realised was that actually the middle way is a way of is the way of ethics. It's the way of compassion. When we kind of get caught up in opinions and disputes and all that sort of thing, we've got to be looking at how is this actually going to serve humanity. So the Buddha sort of talked about the danger of having of opinions, of people kind of start kind of fighting over their opinions and things, and views, having views and all that. So anyway, it's Buddha Day today, and there'll be celebrations later on. I'm on a retreat now with Kamala Sheila. We started last night, and so I've got a session at 10 o'clock this morning, and one at 5, and one at 7:30 tonight. Sort of doing visualization meditation. So that's really good, and that's for a week. So I'm really glad about that. And I'll be tuning into the celebrations at the Manchester Buddhist Centre on Zoom today, through the day. But this is our opportunity in this group to celebrate the Buddha's enlightenment. So that little video I was playing just then is something that I produced for the Buddha Day in 2013 at Manchester Buddhist Centre, and that year we'd gone. 7 of us had gone on a pilgrimage to India for about a month, with a Buddhist order convention at the end of it. So, we'd gone round to we'd seen the Bodhi temple and the Bodhi tree where the Buddha gained enlightenment, and that was a fantastic thing to do at least once in life. To see the the actual spot where the Buddha gained enlightenment, and the temple's fantastic. The way that you got Buddhists from all over the world coming in, and from Japan, from Sri Lanka, all over the place, Tibet, and doing their particular practices. Maybe sort of they all sound a bit different. The way people chant things is different and all that, but it's a real kind of meeting place of the Buddhist world. And and people would offer plates of flowers to the Bodhi tree, and they would rub gold leaf into the stone as a way of kind of offering devotion and respect and that sort of thing. So so we'll just have a little bit of a warm up, a gentle warm up. So if you want to stand up, okay. So rubbing your hands together and brushing down your arms. Just a gentle rotating of the shoulders, so just bring your shoulders up to your ears and then taking them backwards and then down the back. So we're making big circles with the shoulders, bringing them forward and then up, going up again. Just really opening the whole chest as you go back, down the back. Coming forward again. Gently upwards and to the back, opening the chest. And just put your hands facing outwards like this and do a shake. Really coming from the knees with a shake. And then put your embarrassment to one side. And then swinging from side to side. And rotating the hips. So happy Buddha Day for anyone who's just joined us. And then just put your hands on your stomach and bend your knees slightly. Allow your breath to calm down, and then just as you breathe out, bending your knees, and as you breathe in, straighten your knees. So going down on the out breath, coming up on the in breath, and down on the out breath, coming up on the in breath, and then bringing your hands upwards to your chin, turning at the chin, down on the out breath, turning at the hips, up on the in breath, down on the out breath. Turning the hips, coming up on the in-breath, and down on the out-breath. Up on the in-breath, down on the out-breath. Up on the in-breath, and down on the out-breath. Now keep going past your chin this time, up on the in-breath. Open your chest out to the sides, down on the out breath. Up the middle. And up the middle again. Okay, now put your hands out to your side, and I'll just show you what's happening. So just have this middle finger pointing outwards, and then little circles with your fingers, and try to gauge what has the best effect for you. Do you need to do smaller circles? Do you need to do larger circles? Do you need to do a slower circle or a faster one? What gives you the desired effect of more energy in your body? And the right sort of energy? Nice stretch outwards, both sides. And then just shake your hands out. And then take a seat. Okay, so we're going to do the mindfulness of breathing practice in 4 stages, the normal 4 stages. And I'm just going to ring the bells, and we're going to do this for about 20 minutes, and then I'll start to explore the Buddha's enlightenment, seeing it's Buddha Day. Okay. So just settling into your posture. Just allow your body to just sit there, sit on its own. You don't need to be involved with it. Your mind and emotions don't need to be involved with your body. It knows how to sit down. And then all you need to do is just balance your spine so that you're not leaning over one way or another. Because if you're leaning over, you're going to need to hold on one side of your body. Just keep coming back to that in the meditation. Are you balanced? Are you leaving your body alone? Mindfulness of breathing. Second stage of mindfulness of breathing. Third stage, mindfulness of breathing. 4th stage, mindfulness of breathing. So in your own time, bringing that meditation to a close. So it's in its Buddha Day. I'm going to put my case on. Okay, so today is Buddha Day. So today is the most important Buddhist festival of the calendar. the day where we mark the Buddha gaining enlightenment, and so I thought that what people normally do on Buddha days, give a little talk, and then maybe do a puja, do a devotional ceremony. But I thought that I could give a little talk and then do a reading from the Mahavastu, which is actually we've got some different readings, which is the poetic story of the Buddha, and the Buddha's enlightenment, put in really kind of flowery terms. So I think we can have straightforward, rational kind of descriptions of things. Is one way that enlightenment can be evoked, is through the kind of description of the what actually happened, and then we can have more poetic evocations that, in a way, bring more of the maybe the internal spirit of what it might be to be enlightened. So when we kind of have verses that are really evocative, a bit magical, then it's saying that this is what, don't think that you know what enlightenment is really. It's way beyond what you might think it is, and these verses are somehow trying to evoke that. So at the beginning of the video, I played a little beginning of a video that I made in 2013 to celebrate Buddha Day that year, and it's a video of going on pilgrimage, and that verse, the mantra there, being the Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. So when we went to Bodh Gaya, to the Mahabodhi temple where the Buddha gained enlightenment, and there was, you got all these people out the front of the temple, like selling flowers and selling cassettes and CDs and all sorts. That track was just playing all the time. It was a bit like, it was unbelievable. It's like, how could somebody play one 5-minute track endlessly, like again and again and again and again. But yeah, I really liked it, and it really went in. So I think it evokes for me Bodh Gaya, Mahabodhi temple, and all that, and Indian devotion. So I thought I'd just pick up from yesterday. So yesterday I was talking about the Buddha to be, Siddhartha, realizing that not all pleasure was something to be afraid of. So the view among the ascetics was that you had to try and avoid pleasure, in a way, that idea that matter is evil, the body is evil, and you need to get purified of the body and just get into the spiritual, which has nothing to do with the body. So this is a wrong view according to Buddhism. So what Gautama realised is that he needed to work within, from within his body, with his body, was part of the conditions. So we've explored this in earlier sessions about looking after the body and kind of making it a good vehicle for your life. And we had the image yesterday of the 3 images. The image of clinging to a bit of driftwood. You're in water and you're clinging to a bit of driftwood. So this is an image for asceticism, and for maybe being a bit harsh on yourself, being critical, thinking that you need to purify yourself of everything really, all even healthy desires, So that's the wrong view. And then you've got the wrong view that what we need is an ocean-going yacht. To if we're going to be surviving life, we need to have all the pleasures that we can get. So this is a wrong view in the sense that, well, it's actually we're probably taking the Earth's resources from other people that might need them, and also we just get to depend on a certain level of comfort and a certain level of pleasure and all that. And then when that is taken away from us, because life will take things away from us, because in conditioned existence, everything is impermanent and subject to change. So when we lose those things, even if we're in the God realm, which lasts for millions and millions of years according to Buddhism, it will end. It ends at some point, and then we suffer. So the ideal is to go down the middle way, which is like the rubber dinghy or the raft. So it's like we're looking after ourselves. We're not in the water. We're not hanging on a bit of driftwood, but we're looking after ourselves, and we're also trying to cope with change and cope with life as it is, and to bring happiness about to the extent that we can through awareness, and not just for ourselves but for others. So we develop loving kindness, and we develop mindfulness. These are the two pillars of Buddhism: loving kindness and mindfulness. So it's like if we're going to bring happiness to ourselves and others, we need to first of all want it, which is loving kindness. We want our own welfare, we want the welfare of others. And in the Metta meditation, this is what we do. We keep coming back to that idea and try to develop more of a sense of care for ourselves and more of a sense of care for others. And then we need mindfulness. So mindfulness is bringing awareness to things, and seeing what's the source of suffering and what's the source of happiness, and trying to turn all the aspects of our experience from being sources of suffering to being sources of happiness. So there's some things we don't have any control over, and there's some things we do have control over. So we take control over those things we do have control over, and try and make them the best they can be. And this requires effort. This requires things like patience and energy in pursuit of the good. So you get the bodhisattva paramitas, or perfections, developing generosity, ethics, patience, virya, or energy in pursuit of the good, meditation and wisdom. So we have a sense of like there's plenty to do. Like Buddhism is not what Nietzsche called a passive nihilism, where we feel a bit tired with life, and we just go, I'll just try to not disturb myself, just try and stay calm, not work on my depression, that sort of thing. So it is nothing to do with that. It is nothing to do with that. And he was like, he didn't really know enough about Buddhism, I think, at the time to make that decision, make the right decision about it. Anyway, yeah. So we looked at that a little bit yesterday. Nietzsche's views on Buddhism, and So in the kind of more rational description of enlightenment, what happens is so there's a scripture called the Samanaphala Sutta, which means the fruits of the contemplative life. So the Buddha was asked by a king, I think it was Ajatasattu, was it? King Ajatasattu, yeah. It was asked, what are the practical fruits of the spiritual life, and so that the Buddha outlined that, and he says, "Oh, this is a practical fruit. That's a practical fruit." So in the description we get it talks about ethics, about mindfulness and alertness, about contentedness, and then the text moves on to abandoning the hindrances. So the hindrances are negative mental states in meditation, like sloth and torpor, restlessness and anxiety, and doubt, and craving for sense desire and ill will. So these mental states lead to suffering. And in the Samanaphala Sutta, they're compared with. So it says, this is what the monk does when they're trying to become enlightened. So endowed with, so once the practice ethics, endowed with this noble aggregate of virtue, this noble restraint over the sense faculties. So they're no longer looking to the world outside of themselves for sources of happiness. They're looking internally. This noble mindfulness and alertness, and this noble contentment, the monk seeks out a secluded dwelling, a forest, the shade of a tree, a mountain, a glen, a hillside cave, a charnel ground, which is a cemetery, a jungle grove, the open air, a heap of straw. After his meal, returning from his alms round, so living on, not being so involved with the world that has to spend lots of time making money or whatever. He just has a simple life, arms round. He sits down, crosses his legs, holds his body erect, and brings mindfulness to the fore. So this is a description of beginning meditation. Abandoning covetousness with regard to the world, so it's like not looking to the world for satisfaction. The monk dwells with an awareness devoid of covetousness. He cleanses his mind of covetousness. And then it goes through the different hindrances: ill will, abandoning sloth and torpor, and then it says that the result of this is that it's like somebody who's taken out a loan and has then repaid all his debts. It's like this is what experiences that having let go of the hindrances. It's like being freed of debt. Also being freed of sickness, being released from prison, being a slave that's then freed, that sort of thing. So there's a sense of like liberation that comes from if you imagine that those descriptions of experiences, being freed from prison, being freed from debt. So this is the feeling that comes when we're no longer in the hindrances or over. There's a sense of kind of liberation and freedom. And then the text says, starts talking about the four dhyanas, the four higher states of consciousness. Quite withdrawn from sensuality, withdrawn from unskillful mental states, he enters and remains in the first dhyana. Rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal, accompanied by directed thought and evaluation. The monk permeates and pervades, suffuses and fills this very body with the rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. Just as if a skilled bathman's apprentice or their apprentice would pour bath powder, it's like soap powder, into a brass basin and knead it together, sprinkling it again and again with water, so that his bowl of bath powder, saturated, moisture-laden, permeated within and without, would nevertheless not drip. Even so, the monk permeates this very body with the rapture and pleasure born of withdrawal. There is nothing of his entire body unpervaded by rapture and pleasure born from withdrawal. So this is the description of the first dhyana that the Buddha gave of soap powder and water being mixed together so that they completely saturate each other. So it's an image of absorption, self-containment. But what's happening is that the body is being pervaded by rapture and pleasure. So if you have ever had an experience of just sitting in meditation, or even just sitting in a chair, and all of a sudden you just get this real peacefulness come over you, and feeling of like, oh, it's nice to be alive, that sort of thing. And you're not needing anything. So this is the description of that. And then what happens is the text goes through the higher and the other jhanas, and the images for those are the second jhana is like state of inspiration. It's like there's a deep lake, but into the bottom of the lake is a spring. It's coming up spring, so it's like this cool water's coming in to the bottom of the lake. So it's like there's this very sort of still, concentrated state, but into that is coming some inspiration, something from outside of oneself, a sense of like uprising energy, a bit kind of joyful uprising. Oh wow, yeah. So it's like I think this starts to happen when we start to become a little bit excited about spiritual life. We start to think of the possibilities that it starts to work. And then we start to notice, oh wow, it's working, right? Amazing, so we start to feel a bit inspired. And then the third dhyana, the images of water with lotuses in the water, and just as in a lotus pond, some of the lotuses born and growing in the water stay immersed in the water and flourish without standing up out the water, and they're pervaded by cool water from the roots to the tips. So this is an image of meditation, really, that there's this growth happening. So in a way, the water is symbolic of the unconscious, and there's a growth happening that's an unfolding, and lotuses, can be closed and then they start to open and they start to open and they start to really open. So it's a kind of like a flowering of the spiritual life. And at this stage, it says that happiness is the dominant experience. The joy aspect calms down, and we just get this kind of just real peacefulness, real kind of intense peacefulness and happiness. And then in the fourth dhyana, the image is what happens in the fourth dhyana is we start to get elements of insight coming in. So in the fourth dhyana, the image is of a man who's had a bath, and he's come out of the bath and he's wrapped himself in a white cloth, and so it's like a sense of the white cloth represents something like a sense of feeling of protection, or white is often associated with purification, but purification in the Buddhist sense means skillfulness, being very skillful, and also being open to reality. White and reality are often connected, so open to the way things are. So it's like he's no longer interested in pleasure, even the pleasure of meditation. What he's really interested in is insight, getting other people to enlightenment, to creating happiness for himself and others. So there's a danger when things start to go well, that we start to rest in our laurels, and maybe that's what might happen in the third dhyana, that we start to feel happy with ourselves, and then we stop there, So yeah, things fall apart. So that in even the third dhyana will fall apart. So in the fourth dhyana, we're expecting things to fall apart. So we keep bringing them into being. So this too, great king, is a fruit of the contemplative life, visible here and now, more excellent than the previous ones and more sublime. That's the fourth dhyana. So what happens next is that the monk, with his mind thus concentrated, purified and bright, unblemished, free from defects, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, he directs and inclines it to knowledge and vision. He discerns this body of mine is endowed with form, composed of the four primary elements, born from mother and father, nourished with rice and porridge, subject to inconstancy, rubbing, pressing, dissolution and dispersion. So this body of mine is impermanent. And this consciousn's of mine is supported here and bound up here. So this mind of mine is invested in this body, is bound up with this body. Just as if there were a beautiful beryl gem of the purest water, 8-faceted, well-polished, clear, limpid, consummate in all its aspects, and going through the middle of it was a blue, yellow, red, white or brown thread, and a man with good eyesight, taking it in his hand, were to reflect on it thus, and just see that as exactly as it was. In the same way, the monk with this bright, concentrated, purified mind directs it to knowledge and vision, and sees that, how this body, my mind is involved with my body. So it's like a beginning to see how that if the mind is involved with the body, is invested in the body, that maybe it's a good idea to not so much be just be kind of expecting the body to continue. So it's a kind of just an insight practice to just let go gently of that idea that your body's going to last forever. So you can only really do this on the basis of this positive state of mind, the fourth dhyana, where there's a robustness there, there's a there's a brightness, there's that deep kind of contentment and capability, really. I talk about the third dhyana as a state of capability, we're really capable. So it's like we want to sort of take things on as they are and not be hiding from aspects of life. So yeah, if you're really capable, you want to cope with everything, don't you? So the text then says, with his mind thus concentrated, etc. The same text. From his body he creates another body endowed with form, made of the mind, complete in all its aspects, not inferior in its faculties. Just as somebody draws a reed from its sheath, so you get a sheath around a reed, and know that what's the sheath and what's the reed. So this is something, creation of a mind-made body. It's a bit of a mystery, really. What's that? Well, I suppose it's something like a way of being, a way that the mind can be, where it isn't so much relying on the body, but is kind of a bit more aware of itself, and kind of separate from the body. Maybe kind of there's a there's some sort of the insulation beginning to happen between the one's consciousness and dependence on one's body, something like that. I don't know. And then the text then talks about with his mind thus concentrated, he directs and inclines it to the modes of supernormal powers. So having become one, having been one, he becomes many. Having been many, he becomes one. He appears, he vanishes, he goes unimpeded through walls, ramparts and mountains as if through space. He dives in and out of the earth as if it were water. He walks on water without sinking as it were dry land. Sitting cross-legged, he flies through the air like a winged bird. In it with his hand he touches and strokes even the sun and moon, so mighty and powerful. So it's like you think, oh, hang on, what's happening here? Wait a minute, just a minute. But the evocation of the idea of supernormal powers, if we go back to a few days ago, I was talking about literalism and poetry and literalism. So when we have descriptions like this, we need to not kind of take it literally, and we need to see it as evocative of something. So what might it feel like, as if you could, walk through walls or touch the sun or move through a mountain or something like that. So maybe that there's a sense of a confidence there that isn't isn't kind of limited by anything. There's a sense that nothing's going to hold me back. And when we bring in magic, we are kind of saying that things are a mystery. It's a mystery about what this state might be like. If we just had a more kind of mundane kind of description, we'd all be thinking, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." That's nothing. That's nothing special. So when we hear verses like this that are really over the top, so the text goes on to clairaudience, hearing voices, mind reading, telepathy, these sort of qualities. In a way, they're all the same. They're all the same in the sense that they're getting at kind of it's a beyond what you might know, that sort of thing. So these are all the fruits. This too, great king, is a fruit of the contemplative life, visible here and now, more excellent than the previous ones and more sublime. So now what happens is the text starts to describe the Buddha's what happened really when the Buddha gained enlightenment. It's said that in the first watch of the night, what happened was Gautama, as he sat there under the Bodhi tree with the moon above, in the first watch of the night, he recollected his past lives. He's said to have recollected his past lives. He recollects his manifold past lives: 1 birth, 2 births, 3 births, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 100,000 births. There I had such a name, belonging to such a clan, had such an appearance, such was my food, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such the end of my life. Passing away from that state, I re-arose there. There too I had such a name, belonged to such a clan, had such an appearance, such was my food, and so on. So it's like he's recollecting all his previous lives. So again, Buddhists tend to believe in rebirth, although Buddhists also, need to have things confirmed in their experience, and things need to work in experience. So you can't confirm rebirth in your experience by definition. So it is a question of faith. It is a question of whether it's a useful concept to have. So I think the fact that he's recollecting all his previous birth, it's like saying he's aware of the whole pattern of his existence in the past. All the ways in which he's been in the past, and the consequences of those ways. And that he was in this particular life, and then this happened and that happened. So it's about awareness, really. It's about awareness of consequences. Another way of seeing this section is that he becomes aware of conditionality as the main truth about things, the main the way that things are. It makes sense that at some point in the description he would realise conditionality, he'd realise the truth of conditionality. And I think this is the place where it happens, because in the next section what happens is he realises how conditionality works in relation to all beings. So in the second watch of the night, his mind thus concentrated, purified and bright, unblemished, free from defects, etc. He directs and inclines it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. So seeing beings being born here and having this life and then being reborn somewhere else, reappearing in good destinations, in bad destinations, in heavenly realms, in hell realms. So this is the law of karma. This is karma. So karma depends on conditionality. Karma is a consequence of conditionality. So, when we practice ethics, when we do good, when we create happiness for ourselves and others, then we have a happy rebirth. When we create suffering, it's said that actions have consequences, so we have a poor rebirth. This too great king is the fruit of the contemplative life, visible here and now, more excellent than the previous ones and more sublime. Then finally, in the last watch of the night, it's said that Gautama, with his mind thus concentrated, purified and bright, unblemished, etc., directed it and inclined it to knowledge of the ending of the biases or mental fermentations. So the biases, or the ashravas, there's three ashravas. It's the tendency towards sense desire, or relying on the world of the senses. That's the calm ashrava. Karma, see in the sense of not karma with an R, is what we normally think of as karma. Karma without an R, K-A-M-A, means sense desire. So it's like the calm ashrava is like the tendency to rely on the world. So when we don't rely on the world at all for the external world for our happiness, then we've overcome that tendency, that bias. Then there's the bhava ashrava, which is the tendency towards becoming. So becoming in Buddhism is always associated with becoming and then becoming something which is then going to decay. So bhava is, in a way, when we become anything, we become a particular type of person which is unenlightened, and then we suffer when things fall apart. So we're looking to overcome, become free from birth and death, or anything which is subject to birth and death. So when we become enlightened, we're no longer subject to birth and death. So it's like we're no longer going around the wheel the wheel of life. So we overcome the Mahavastu. So it's becoming anything which is unenlightened. And then finally the Avidyasra, which is the tendency towards ignorance. His heart, thus knowing, thus seeing, is released from the fermentation of sensuality, the fermentation of becoming, the fermentation of ignorance. Where with release there is the knowledge released. So knowledge of the destruction of the ashravas is the final stage in the spiral path. When the Buddha doesn't just become liberated, he knows that he's liberated. That's the final stage. He discerns that birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. There is nothing further for this world. And then this is a fantastic description. It's just as if there were a pool of water, like a mountain glen, clear, limpid and unsullied, where a man or person with good eyesight standing on the bank could see shells, gravel and pebbles, and also shoals of fish swimming about and resting. It would occur to him, this pool of water is clear, limpid and unsullied. And so on. There are these shells, gravellous shoals of fish. With his mind thus concentrate, purified and bright, he discerns this is stress, this is suffering. Four Noble Truths. This is stress. Life is stress. This is the origin of suffering. Craving is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. Nirvana. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Noble Eightfold Path. These are the mental formation. These are the mental biases. This is the origination of mental biases. This is the cessation of mental biases. This is the way leading to the cessation of the ashravas. His heart, thus knowing, thus seeing, is released from the fermentation of sensuality, of ignorance, of becoming. With release there is the knowledge released. He discerns that birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. There is nothing further for this world. This too, great King, is a fruit of the contemplative life, visible here and now, more excellent than the previous ones and more sublime. And as for another visible fruit of the contemplative life, higher and more sublime than this, there is none. So this is the highest, nirvana is the highest fruit of the spiritual life. Okay, so that gives us the rational description of enlightenment. So I'm just going to go over to the Mahavastu, where we've got some poetry, more kind of intense poetry. So it says the final defeat of Mara. So Mara is almost like the Buddhist version of the devil. He's like a kind of powerful figure who comes and kind of challenges the Buddha in the run up to his enlightenment. And so the Buddha was in front, nearby in Bodh Gaya is the river Naramjara, and in the river is we could say that lives. In Buddhist mythology, lives the great Naga. So the great Naga is the king of the Nagas, and so Naga is like a water serpent, that sort of thing, and Nagas are very associated with wisdom, So when the heroic Bodhisattva, this is the Buddha to be, came to the river Naranjara, then did Kala, the great Naga, all alone begin to reflect. How, thought he, this great earth resounds like a beaten pan of metal. Without a doubt a great hero is about to appear in the world. Hearing the great earth filled with gladsome noise resound, he emerged from his lair and looked out all around him. Just as the great Naga looked out, he saw the peerless, supreme man, like a blazing firebrand, or like lightning among the clouds. This is the Buddha to be. The lion man went on his way along the banks of the Naranjara, unhurried and undisturbed, bright as a sacrificial fire. Then Kala, the Naga, extolled the Lord. Elated and filled with joy and happiness, he adored the Bodhisattva and uttered these verses. Thou art like the great and glorious saviours of the world whom I saw of yore. I have no doubt about this. From the way thou liftest up thy right foot as thou scannest the regions around, O supreme of men, today thou wilt become Buddha. From the way this earth resounds like a beaten pan of metal, there is no doubt, great hero, that today thou wilt become Buddha. So it goes on like that. And then, as the Bodhisattva thus pushed on, so this is a bit later, there moved around him from the right 500 vana birds, 500 flamingos, 500 curlews, 500 peacocks, 500 pheasants, and 500 maidens. Kala, the Naga king, saw this, and when he had seen it, he again said to the Bodhisattva, Go, great recluse, go. The way thou comest is the way the exalted recluse Kratu Chanda came, and he awakened to the incomparable perfect enlightenment. This is probably a previous Buddha. Today, O great recluse, thou too comest along that way, and today thou shalt awaken to the incomparable perfect enlightenment. Inasmuch as the earth is everywhere covered with flowers, for it is at the arising of Buddhas that it becomes so adorned. Inasmuch as 500 vana birds salute thee from the right, there is no doubt, O great hero, that today thou wilt become Buddha. Inasmuch as 500 falcons salute thee from the right, there is no doubt, O great hero, that today thou wilt become Buddha. Inasmuch as 500 flamingos salute thee from the right, there is no doubt, O great hero, that today thou wilt become Buddha. So it continues like that. So then we come on to the attack of Mara. So at a certain point, the Buddha's sitting in meditation, and Mara appears. So in the Mahavastu it says, let's go. This is from Light of Liberation. As the Bodhisattva entered meditation, rays of light came forth from his body, spreading out in all directions and illuminating all of the Buddha fields of boundless space in the vast open sphere of the Dharma. Perceiving this light, great Bodhisattvas assembled from the Buddha fields of the 10 directions to pay homage to the Bodhisattva. Then the Bodhisattva extended this light to the abode of Mara, Lord of Illusion, whom not even the gods had the power to challenge. Knowing the meaning of this light, Mara assembled his sons and the generals of his demon warriors, so this army of demon warriors. And he says, when the Bodhisattva awakens, he will awaken hundreds of millions of others. When he obtains immortality and enters the cool of nirvana, he will empty my abode of every being. So he's like in charge of all of samsara, the world of conditioned existence. With a vast army we must go forth. We will strike the Shramana who sits alone at the foot of the king of trees. Quickly assemble the 4 divisions of troops. If you want to please me, act quickly. Through the world, though the world is full of Pratyeka Buddhas and Arahants, my strength is not diminished when they enter nirvana. But if he becomes king of the Dharma, there will be countless Buddhas, their numbers immeasurable. So Mara then attacks with his army. Mara's power over the minds of living beings was formidable. With a gesture he could shape reality to suit his purpose. He was skilled in using illusion to conceal the true nature of reality and to dull the senses of beings, enslaving them through greed, lust and fear. Now he called his demon army, shape changers all, to converge by the hundreds of millions on the Bodhisattva. Taking the most hideous and repulsive of forms, the army of demons advanced, hurling swords, lightning bolts, clubs, hammers, uprooted trees, boulders, chains and iron balls. But when they threw these fearsome implements, the weapons changed into garlands and canopies of flowers. Soon flowers covered the ground and hung as ornaments on the Bodhi tree. So magnificent were these displays that Mara was devoured by anger and envy. The Lord of Illusion then challenged the nature of the Bodhisattva's merit, demanding that he call a witness to support his claim to enlightenment. So it's the Mara's saying, well, who's here to witness that you're ready to become enlightened? So the Bodhisattva recalled his previous lifetimes, that he'd been practicing perfections to try and get ready to become enlightened, and touching the ground with his right hand. This is the earth touching mudra. Touching the ground with his right hand, he called upon the earth to witness this truth. So the earth shook in 6 different ways, and the goddess of the earth, Stavara, rose halfway from the ground to affirm what the Bodhisattva said. So the earth goddess rose up out of the earth and said, yes, he is ready to attain enlightenment. He's done all this practice in the past. I witnessed this. So Mara kind of he tried all sorts of things. He tried violence, with his army of hordes of demons, millions of demons, and he tried temptation. He offered the Buddha to be his beautiful daughters, but he wasn't swayed. And he also said, well, isn't this just your pride wanting to do this? He tried every means, but none of it had any effect. So basically, what happened is, it's a bit like all the weapons being thrown at the Buddha. They all turned into flowers, So it's like the Buddha would, he could transform anything, anything harmful. He would be able to transform it into something positive. So the weapons just became flowers that fell at his feet. Having overcome Mara, Lord of Illusion, the Bodhisattva remained in meditation under the Bodhi tree. As night deepened, he successively entered the 4 profound levels of meditation. That's the 4 dhyānas. During the first watch of the night, he perceived with the clear light of awareness the arising, passing away and rebirth of living beings, each according to his actions. In a supreme instance of great compassion, the Bodhisattva saw that if suffering exists, there must be a cause. Examining the cause of old age, sickness and death, he perceived that the conditioning cause for these sufferings is birth. Where birth exists, there is also old age, sickness and death. Further, he saw that the cause of birth is existence. Where there is existence, there will be birth. So that's bhava, becoming. So he goes back through all the links on the wheel of life, the different, when birth exists, craving is there, when craving is there, feeling's present, when feeling is present, the 6 senses are there, when the 6 senses are there, and so on. Just back around the wheel of life, and what happens, what all that originates is in ignorance. So seeing through ignorance, seeing how things are, when we get rid of ignorance, the positive, the spiral of conditionality comes about, and we move to enlightenment. Seeing how suffering comes into being, its cause and its cure, the Bodhisattva identified the nature of each link of the chain of conditioned co-production. Separately, for each there was a beginning, an end, and a path to this end. Then, during the last watch of the night, the Bodhisattva, at the age of 35, attained complete perfect enlightenment. At dawn, the first rays of the sun touched the transformed Bodhisattva, illuminating the radiant golden body of a Buddha, a fully enlightened being. Rays of light by the hundreds of thousands escaped from his body. They spread throughout the great fields of the jinnas, the conquerors, bringing peace to those in the 3 lower realms. At this instant, at this very moment, all worries are set aside. Suffering, pride and hatred torment no one any longer. In the Mahavastu, it says, this is what it says at the last part, the last watch of the night. In the last watch of the night, in the flush of dawn, towards daybreak, he awakened to all that the man, the true man, the great man, the bold man, the real man, the heroic man, you got to think woman as well, the elephant man, the lion man, the leader of men, the red lotus man, the white lotus man, the blue lotus man, the sterling man, the terrible man, the peerless driver of tameable men, the valiant man, the courageous man, the solitary man, the diligent man, the ardent man, the secluded man, the resolute man, the man who abides in the right way, mindful, firm, intelligent, wise, good and zealous, has at all times and everywhere to know, understand and fully understand. To all this, to the unsurpassed perfect enlightenment, he awakened through insight gained in a momentary flash of thought. So, at the Buddha gaining enlightenment, the devas were the gods, stood near with garlands in their hands, and then waves of blossoms of diverse colours, bright and fragrant, rained down, released from the hands of the devas, to salute the king of the devas. So the king of the devas is the Buddha. To him whose energy is beyond compare, like iron, whose great splendour of birth is like a flame, make obeisance. To him the honoured of devas and men, the invincible. When these things become manifest to the zealous and contemplative Brahman, all these doubts disappear, since he understands things and their causes. So these are three different descriptions of the Buddha's enlightenment from the Mahavastu, from the Samanaphala Sutta, and from the Light of Liberation, a history of Buddhism in India. So I hope this has given us a sense. I feel like I've celebrated the Buddha's enlightenment. I hope this has given you a sense of what enlightenment might be like through poetic imagery. That whole thing of 500 falcons saluting him from the right and 500 flamingos and all the devas, the gods, sort of showering blossoms down onto the ground. So I hope you have a really nice day today, Buddha Day, and wish you well for the rest of the year and for the rest of your lives. And may you all attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Thank you.